A paramilitary chemical weapons factory in Irkutsk gets attacked by a cyborg ape resembling King Kong but on steroids. It swallows explosives for breakfast as he eradicates them all. Meanwhile, Kong, the original ape, is being held at a secret wildlife preservation in Nebraska for research by a multinational operation called Techocore. Their aim is to perfect a mechanized version of him for peacekeeping missions across the globe. NASA also partnered in the research, and they once sent the ape to space, and he returned mutated with alien DNA. He started showing signs of rapid growth and aggression, but the team aims to first complete the Mecha Ape, and they won't have to worry about Kong anymore. Some local citizens and animal rights advocates are unhappy with the operations happening in their neighborhood, and they demand that they stop it and take Kong away. Kong himself is showing signs of stress, and the only person able to calm him down is Agent Sloan, whom he has a soft spot for, since she is able to communicate with him. Meanwhile, a local named Joel flies his drone into the preserve area to check on Kong, and Kong knocks it down. He gets arrested for aggravating Kong, but reveals that he was only concerned for the ape. The observation team notices his vitals are increasing, and they send in for Sloan to calm him down. The research is about to end since they're finalizing the project, and Sloan has to find a way to keep Kong calm. Meanwhile, Joel gets released since the authorities are trying to keep their research a secret from the locals, and they warn him to avoid the area. Before leaving, Joel reminds them that wild animals do have a limit. Sloan later visits Kong and communicates with him using light colors, which they trained him to understand. She assures him that he's still safe in their hands. However, Kong appears unhappy with whatever is happening to him. Following this, Sloan gets a brief report about Project Mecha Ape, who was recently deployed to wreck an Asian chemical weapons facility. Mecha Ape will be good to join the military soon, but first, Kong needs to be transferred to the custody of the military to avoid the noise of the locals. NASA officials, Dr. Pierce, Laura, and Sloan, are worried since they have grown fond of him, and they warn that a change in environment could alter his emotions. They've also had him suppressed with plasma drugs, and if transferred to a closed facility, his stress levels could increase highly, which no one wants to happen. Meanwhile, in Irkutsk, the weapons facility owners who got attacked by Mecha Ape vow to revenge and make the American government pay for arrogantly destroying their property. Their leader Pavla also lost her son in the attack, and she is now very bitter. When the organization learns that the US military is transferring a thermonuclear weapon to Indiana, the group's deputy, Arnott, hires a group of hackers to hack into their systems to steal the weapon. They move all the way to Indiana and start working to hijack and turn the weapon against the Americans. Meanwhile, as Mecha Ape is being flown to Pentagon, he wakes up above Indiana and tears through the plane. The plane crash lands and the Pentagon loses trace of Mecha Ape. Elsewhere, Joel, the drone guy who is surprisingly an astrophysicist, visits Dr. Pierce with an interesting theory about Kong. He thinks the alien DNA inside Kong could be like an alien virus, which controls a victim, making them stronger. However, Kong could be suppressing the DNA himself, which is why he hasn't yet burst. Joel was also cheekily seeking a chance to communicate with Kong, but gets denied. Meanwhile, as Laura and Sloan head to investigate the crash site of the Mecha Ape plane, he is nowhere to be found. Suddenly, though, the ground shakes and Mecha Ape comes out of the sand with a weird look on his face. Sloan smells something is wrong as he heads to town, where it starts greeting the buildings. The Minister of Defense orders it shut down, but Sloan has to switch it off manually. And so as Mecha Ape is terrorizing the city, Sloan jumps into it from a rooftop. Inside of it, she discovers that it has been hacked and someone is sending it to a specified location. From the programmed code, she deduces that it was hacked by a Irkutsk paramilitary group, who are sending it to a nuclear warhead facility in Indiana. The defense officials suggest they send in more air and land troops to take out the threat, but that will only create a bloodbath. The Secretary of Defense therefore suggests they send in an appropriate response, which is King Kong. Meanwhile, the hijackers manage to control Mecha Ape to pick up the nuclear missile. Sloan is still inside of it, struggling to shut it off amidst the commotion of Mecha Ape. The hackers discover there's someone fighting them from inside the machine. They lock out the operating system, meaning that the machine cannot be stopped unless it gets ripped out, bolt by bolt. Meanwhile, the military gets to Nebraska to pick up Kong. Dr. Pierce and Joel try to warn them that the situation could get even more dangerous for them, especially since Sloan is inside of it. Joel is worried that once Kong is released, he could turn against the military to seek revenge since he has been misused by NASA. However, it's too late since the orders have been passed and they are using the ape. They inject Kong with a sedative and carry him away to the battlefield. The Minister of Defense is informed about Sloan being in the machine, but they still have to destroy it to protect the civilians. The villains take Mecha Ape towards Chicago, carrying the nuclear weapon, and Sloan tries to warn the Pentagon to evacuate everyone from the city, but it's hard to hear her over all the mechanical whirring. Meanwhile, Kong gets dropped at a turbines field just by Mecha Ape's way. Sloan tries to call Kong off, but he can't hear. Mecha Ape immediately launches missiles and bullets at Kong and starts choking him. Kong responds with a powerful punch, and the fight is on. However, the Mecha Ape is a little too well equipped and ends up injuring Kong. Sloan sees this and cuts out some wires that control the eye color of Mecha Ape. She turns on the red color, signaling for Kong to stop and retreat. It does actually work as Kong sees this and stops fighting Mecha Ape. Sloan finally gets signal to communicate with Laura and warns her of the incoming danger to Chicago City. She also tells them that Kong is injured and they should contain him, and the officials tell her to just make sure the bomb doesn't reach Chicago. Dean, the Secretary of Defense, tells his people to follow the machine, and if the bomb gets activated, they should dispose of it somewhere very deep, like in a park where there's a massive hole. Inside Mecha Ape, the door gets stuck, and Sloan is trapped inside. Meanwhile, Dr. Pierce tracks Kong's vitals after he disappeared, and they're highly increasing. Their new hope is that if Kong faces the Mecha Ape again, his vitals could spike, and he could destroy the machine, and they would later have to sedate him. Sloan starts cutting wires inside the machine and it reduces in speed, but it will have already reached the city before fully shutting down. Mecha Ape does reach the city, where he finds Kong was waiting for him. He fires random bullets at Kong, who dodges some and swallows others. King is really angry now, and he picks up a train, which he mounts onto Mecha Ape's head. Kong's adrenaline is over the roof and he can't stop smashing at Mecha Ape, unaware that Sloan is inside. If this continues, it will fry the machine, and the warhead will explode on the city. Sloan fears for her life, and her only option is to trigger the failsafe launch, which will fire all weapons at Kong and probably eliminate him. Sloan pulls the plug, and Mecha Ape fires heavily at Kong, injuring him. Kong falls down on his back, while Mecha Ape finally powers off. The machine starts going into a critical meltdown, and Sloan faints while still inside. Meanwhile, Dr. Pierce arrives in a chopper, accompanied by Joel and Laura. They pour a sedative from the sky aimed at Kong, but it misses him. Sloan wakes up a few minutes later, and so does Kong, who continues punching the Mecha Ape. Sloan shouts out for Kong to stop, but he can't hear her. The door finally manages to slide open, and Sloan runs out. She then calls to Kong, but the Mecha Ape powers back up and starts attacking him. This time, Kong starts tearing its limbs. Sloan directs Kong to throw the machine into the giant hole, and he does so from where it harmlessly explodes off. Following this, Sloan reunites with her workmates, who think they need to rethink the design of a new Mecha Ape version. However, Sloan shuts down the Mecha Ape program, saying there's only room in town for one ape, King Kong. Kong beats his chest after seeing that he saved the city, and the girls love him. Meanwhile, the Merkisk team members are attempting to escape in a private jet. They can't go back home, since their authorities could arrest them, so they choose to fly elsewhere and be fugitives. However, their plans are halted by the Dark Knight, who shakes them out of their plane, and they get arrested. Following this heroic moment, King Kong gets a new home in a private island, with nobody else for miles. This is his reward from the government for saving millions of lives. NASA is also given full custody to take care of him with no interference from the military. Kong likes his new home, and the thrilling film comes to an end. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to our channel. I'll be back with another interesting movie recap. Until then, take care.